Good morning, class. By now you have probably seen your grade for Class Library Milestone 1, which a surprising number of you did very poorly on. And I want to go ahead and walk through what problems you may have seen in your code and things that you need to address, and then I'll talk about how you can potentially resubmit that assignment to get back those points. So to start with, when you read the Class Library Milestone 1, it's important you pay attention to these requirements. So we need to follow the layout and the coding conventions, create classes that reflect the given UML. This has actually been updated several times, so if you have an old version of the UML diagram, you probably need to download the latest version. Create the enum classes, entree classes, drink classes, and side classes. And this is very important right here. All classes should be declared in their respective namespaces. And then we gave you exactly what those namespaces should be. If they are not declared in these namespaces, then we can't run tests against them. So if, for example, we have Aretino apple juice declared in the data.drinks namespace, go take a look at our test that we wrote last time. Notice that it no longer knows what the Aretino apple juice is. Now, yes, we could come in and say, oh, well, I just need to delete this Bleakwind buffet right here. But that's not following the instructions laid out in the assignment. So you need to follow the assignment directions. You need to come into your Aretino apple juice and change this to Bleakwind buffet.data.drinks. As soon as you do that, your test is then going to pick it up and no longer be complaining. In addition, your test probably didn't have the using statement for the drinks or the enums or the sides. Those need to match the namespaces when you add them that we provided in assignment 1. You might be wondering, why is that such a big deal? I'm writing this program all by myself. I don't need to do it the way that you've asked me to do. And the reason we ask you to do it this way is because we're preparing you for professional practice. And depending on where you end up working, you will probably start as an entry-level programmer, a Programmer 1 position. And you will be given assignments like this, where you are given a specification for classes you are going to build, which need to plug into a larger solution that other programmers are working with. And if you go rogue and stop following those instructions because you want to do it your way or you think your way is better, when they try to integrate your classes into that program, it's not going to work. It's going to crash. It's going to cause all kinds of problems, and your entire team is going to be very upset with you. And if you keep doing that for more than 2 or 3 times, they're going to actually fire you. You're going to lose your job. It's important that you actually learn to follow these specifications. That's how a team, which no matter where you go, you are probably going to be working with a team. That's how a team can build software together without tripping over each other's work. So it is very important you follow that specification. Now, in terms of that namespace, as was suggested, there's a fairly easy way you can go in and, for example, if you have just data drinks, if you highlight this whole thing and go to rename, well, normally that would work. Doesn't want to work for me today. No, because I'm in the wrong spot. Argentino apple juice. So if I went ahead and put this back to data drinks, if you right click on this, say rename, it will actually allow you to rename all the references in all your files all at the same time. So if we added Bleakwind dot in front of it, that actually is going to rename everything that was named a Bleakwind dot data dot drinks. Since this is the only one I have, I'll just go ahead and do it right there. So that will update that and make sure that that works across the board. Or you can go in and change them all by hand, but that is important. So the second thing, let's take a look at this Sailor Soda test. A lot of you guys did, has to do with public and private accessors. So we spent some time talking about this already, but when we declare a class like the Argentino apple juice, we want that class to be public. It needs to be public or it cannot be accessed outside of this class. The same thing for all of your properties. They need to be declared public if they're going to be accessed from outside of that class. Can you have private properties? Absolutely. Can you have private classes? Actually, yes. There are some edge cases, some use cases where we would want a class to be public. Those are pretty few and far between. You're probably never going to do it at this point in your computer science career. But all of those need to be spelled out explicitly as being public. If you didn't do that, well, let's take a look at what happens. So let's look at Sailor Soda test. Say we want to go ahead and set up our first Sailor Soda test. And notice that we don't have the Bleakwind Buffet .data.drinks in there. So if I try to use that Sailor Soda, it doesn't even want me to write Sailor Soda, because autocomplete is trying to correct it to a symbol that it knows actually exists. So if I go back in and I add my using Bleakwind Buffet .data.drinks namespace, you think that would solve it, but notice I'm still not recognizing Sailor Soda. And if we look at the warning it's giving, it's telling us it's inaccessible due to its protection level. If I come back over here, notice I didn't put a public in front of it. If you don't put public in front of a class, a property, or a field, it is by default private, which means it cannot be seen by code outside of this class or outside of this file. So I have to make this public in order to have access to it. So as soon as I do that, notice that now I can declare a Sailor Soda, and I can go ahead and write my test. And we want to make sure that this includes ice by default. So if I do s or assert dot equal, or actually true, and then s dot ice, notice, that works. Let's do small by default, Sailor Soda, s equals new Sailor Soda, and assert dot equal size dot small size and s dot size. And notice, once again, I'm seeing this underscore, this red underlining, and it's telling me Sailor Soda.size is inaccessible due to its protection level. If I come back and look, notice I didn't have a public in front of this. You have to declare everything that's intended to be used outside of this class as public. Same with size, public. Same with the price, public. Same with the calories, public. If you did not make these public, then they cannot be picked up by the test project. And as you write your test project, you should be finding these problems and addressing those and fixing those. This is part of the reason we do write tests, is it forces us to really recognize when these problems come about. So our next question might be, how am I supposed to submit this work if I make these changes? So what you're going to do is make the changes we've asked for, and then you're going to create a new release. So when you create your release, and you specify the version, because this release is still for Milestone 1, its version number would be 0.1, and then because this is a second release on that first release, so it's a bug fix, it's a patch, we're going to use 0.1. So your total tag version should be v0.1.1, or if this is your third release, it should be 0.1.2. So they always go up by 1, and since you're doing it on an old release, you're going to change the last number to go up by 1. So go ahead and resubmit with that increased number after you've fixed your problems and turn that in. You're going to turn that back into the original assignment, the Milestone 1 assignment. Do not turn this into Milestone 2. This is still Milestone 1. Submit your release there, and when you do, the TAs will go through and they will regrade it using the new version that you've written. Now, a couple things are going to happen. We'll let you have complete points back up to the 100 points. If you submit it early, guess what? That's gone. You're not getting the 10 bonus points for submitting on Friday because we allowed you to resubmit. That said, We are giving you 10 bonus points if you get Milestone 2 done by this Friday. And if you do Milestone 2, that should force you to fix all of the problems in Milestone 1. Probably even some problems you didn't see. So you actually will have the opportunity to do some freebie fixes other than the namespace and the public properties, which are the two big stumbling blocks that our students ran into. So go ahead, finish out your tests if you have the time to do that, and use those tests to help make sure that your code is actually correct. But those need to be turned in by Friday for the re-release of Milestone 1. Milestone 2, you have until Sunday. If you release it on Friday, if you get that turned in on Friday, Milestone 2 will give you 10 bonus points for getting it done early. One last thing on Milestone 2. If you look at the unit tests we provided, you'll notice we have the Arantino apple juice, the Candle Hearth coffee, the Marcath milk, and the Sailor soda. We are missing the water class. So if we go back to Milestone 1, you should have a Warrior Water class as well. So we did not write a test for the Warrior Water, but actually this is a good learning opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and add that as a requirement for Milestone 2. So you'll want to create your own Warrior Water test class in the drink tests and write it to cover the same ground. By now you should have, by the time you get to it, you should have enough practice writing tests to be able to say, oh, I know I need to have a should include ice by default in this class. I should start it small. I should be able to set that ice. I should be able to set the size. And I should be able to get the correct price for size and the correct calories for size. And it's basically going to follow the same format as those other tests, as well as the correct special instructions. So I will leave that to you to actually go ahead and write all of the details that go with the test for the Warrior Water. So that is in addition to what you previously saw on that milestone, and I'll be adding that to the milestone requirements here in a moment. So those are the things you need to do. Go back through your old code if you were one of the people who received a 0 on the assignment. Fix all of the problems so that it is actually pulled in and able to be tested correctly. If you have questions about that, if you're not sure that you've actually addressed the problem, reach out to me or the TAs. Then submit your work to by creating a new release on GitHub with your changes. Turn that release in on the original assignment. You should be able to resubmit on the original assignment, and we will go in and regrade that. And you'll have the opportunity to earn back up to 100 points. On Milestone 2, you also now need to write a Warrior Water tests class to do testing of the Warrior Water. That should be done pretty much the same way as all the other drink test classes. That's all I have for you today. So if you have questions, if you're stuck, if you don't know what you're doing, reach out, talk to the TAs, talk to me. That's what we're here for. Bring your questions with you to class. That is what the class time is for addressing those questions that you might have.